Okay, Joe, do you want to go ahead and get us kicked off? It's 2:00 p.m.
Sure. So first of all, thank you everybody for joining us today. We really appreciate the opportunity to collaborate and welcome. I do want to go ahead before we go ahead and get started. Just a quick note to say that in terms of official signups, I am happy and proud to announce that the National Entrepreneurship Week session on education has made history. Right, Amber, by selling out for the first time with the number of attendees. So we're super excited to have everybody here today and have the array of partners today, as well as the rest of the week, kick us off. It's been a wonderful journey. And before I kind of dive into the next slide, I also want to give a big shout out to Amber and her team for all the great work that they've done in putting together the slides and corralling all of our wonderful speakers today. So Amber, thank you again for all your hard work and the amount of time and effort. This is an all-volunteer effort at this point, and so we really appreciate you and Megan and the rest of the team for all their assistance with this. So thank you. Next slide. So just as a reminder, National Entrepreneurship Week takes place the third week of February from Maui to Maine. It's a whole host of organizations, individuals, businesses, non-businesses, libraries, communities, community colleges, schools, cities, non-cities, rural communities, federal government, non-government agencies, and it's super, super exciting to see the momentum continue to grow over the last several years. And so we were very, very excited about the diverse voices. The nice thing about National Entrepreneurship Week and what was intended to do was from Maui to Maine. And even though we don't have Maui on this map and Alaska, it is from Maui to Maine and everywhere in between to allow us to democratize the conversation about entrepreneurship and open up the access to resources and funding to communities across the United States. So we're super excited as we continue these calls today from 2 to 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time and the rest of the week. Next slide. So just as a reminder, National Entrepreneurship Week was founded in 2006 by the National Consortium for Entrepreneurship Education and the Kauffman Foundation. EntreEd is one of the leading organizations working with K through 12 schools and helped found it back in 2006. You can look at the National Entrepreneurship Week website. The website is at the bottom to find more information about that order that came from Congress. But it is an exciting time of the year in order to be able to recognize businesses and the capacity building organizations that help support them. So in addition to that, just a quick, again, thank you to Amber and to our team to helping drive National Entrepreneurship Week, bring together all of the partners and the speakers. It's really, really appreciative of all the hard work that it takes to bring all the folks together. So next slide. Just as a reminder, if you haven't already, follow us on National Entrepreneurship Week. There is the Twitter handle. And use National Entrepreneurship Week when tweeting throughout the week. So if you're sitting at your desk right now at your computer, feel free to pick up your phone while you're doing this and multitask and add National Entrepreneurship Week to the list of organizations that you follow. Okay, next slide. Amber, I'm gonna hand this back over to you to kick things off and get the ball rolling.
Sure. So just a few logistics. If you haven't noticed, we are muting all participants upon entry. In order for us to have a smooth webinar, we want to make sure there's not a lot of audio feedback. So we're asking that any questions you may have for our great speakers, please be submitted via the chat function. If we have time at the end of the webinar, we may offer a live Q&A to our speakers. But if we do not have that opportunity, we will forward those questions to the speakers for them to follow up with you via email. We want to make sure that we're really supporting our participants and our attendees of these webinars and helping you understand entrepreneurship education through any of the questions that you may have. All webinars will be recorded and live on the NatlEshipWeek.org website at a maximum of 1 week after the webinar. So it'll probably be up sooner, but we want to give us a little bit of leeway there, so it'll be up within 1 week. And we encourage you to stay tuned all the way to the end of the webinar. We have a bunch of cool opportunities coming down the pipeline for National eShip Week 2020 that we would really love to increase engagement with. And so if you're still on at the end of the webinar, we'll be talking about those opportunities. And with that, I'm going to introduce the beginning of our entrepreneurship education webinar. It's February 18th, 2019, National eShip 2019. And we are super excited today to be speaking with EntreEd, the National Consortium for Entrepreneurship Education, and NACCE, the National Association for Community College Entrepreneurship. We know you already followed National eShip Week, but these are two organizations in entrepreneurship education you really should be following. They are up to date on the latest trends in entrepreneurship education at the K-12 and community college level. And so throughout the webinar, if there's anything that you find riveting or that you really want to share on Twitter, please tag those organizations as well. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to Dr. Jean Colson here, and we're going to get started.
All right. Well, Amber, I want to add my thanks to all of your efforts and those of Joe Cap in getting us to where we are today. Go ahead and go to the next slide. These are the two folks who are leading off today, but there are going to be a whole lot of really dynamite speakers here today, so my portion is going to be mercifully short. Next slide. Just a little bit about EntreEd. If you look in the center of the screen there, you see entrepreneurship education, K-12, every student, every year. That is our mantra. That's the statement of fact that we work from every day now. It's been years ago that EntreEd worked in lots of different areas concerning entrepreneurship advocacy. And recently, in the last 5 years or so, we've done a scan of the environment and found partners like NACCE that are working in the community college realm, or others that are working in other parts of entrepreneurship education, in the universities or in incubators and community-based organizations. So we decided that we're going to focus on K-12. If you look to our beliefs on the left, the very first one says anyone can be an entrepreneur, and that pathway is always available. And we believe that. We see ourselves as the beginning of the pipeline, but that entrepreneurship opportunities are available in K-12 and in community colleges and at the university level, and even for that person that works for somebody else for 15 years and then decides now's their time. The entrepreneurship as a pathway is available at any time in somebody's lifetime. And I'm going to do you a big favor by not reading the rest of this rather dense slide. Next slide. What we determined a few years ago was that if you looked at the entrepreneurship education landscape, at the higher ed level, this was a growth industry. In community colleges and four-year institutions, there are new courses and new majors and minors and centers and activities and business plan competitions and pitch competitions, just a lot of activity going on. What we sort of discovered was that level of activity wasn't really happening in the K-12 arena. So that's kind of why we decided we would look at K-12, and what we did find at K-12 was there are lots of available curricula and materials and activities to do, but it was still a case where the only kids that benefited from that were the small slice of a student body who happened to be in Miss Johnson's class who did that activity, or the kids that were in that after-school event or that summer event. it was still pretty likely, despite all of the available activities, that most kids would start in pre-K or kindergarten and go all the way through and graduate and never learn much about entrepreneurship. So we ask ourselves, how can we put a block on that? How can we make sure that every student in a building learns about entrepreneurship in a single school year? So next slide, please. There we go. So the way that we decided to attack this problem was not by writing a new curriculum or developing materials. What we did is we developed a school designation called America's Entrepreneurial School. This picture you have on your screen is from Clay County, West Virginia, where all 6 of the schools in Clay County High School, Clay County schools in West Virginia became America's Entrepreneur happened, and how you become one of these and how it works. I'm going to turn the program over to Toy Hirschman, Regional Coordinator for EntreEd, right now.
Hi, everybody. I'm Toy. I want to also extend my thanks to Amber and Joe and the team for getting all of this amazing week together. It's going to be fantastic. So we created a program called America's Entrepreneurial Schools, and as Jean mentioned, it's the only national K through 12 entrepreneurship education designation. So essentially it's an award. You can see our big honkin' banner picture right there. We intentionally made that banner big and orange so that it would stand out, and it would be on par with, you know, some of those big banners you see like when your team wins states, just to make it explicit that it's a really important, it's a really big deal. Next slide, please. All right, so what this is we give schools an award if they're able to bring some type of entrepreneurship education or activity to every single kid in the building, every student every year is our mantra, like as Jean said. So when we do this, we help the schools, but we specifically don't provide a curriculum, because what we like to do is empower teachers and students to develop what works for them, for their school, their classrooms, their communities. So we kind of hold their hand while they're developing this, and we do professional development. We have an amazing full day, half day PD. It's not your grandma's PD. It's just a blast of a day that takes teachers through a bunch of activities and things that really showcase how they can get to these entrepreneurial mindsets with students. Schools get a regional coordinator. I'm one of those. They get online resources and lesson kickstarters. We have a lot of information and resources on our website that can help teachers just get started. They get discounts to the forum, and you saw the banner, and exclusive access to some opportunities that come up as we are in this space. We have friends and partners that have different opportunities that we can offer to our America's Entrepreneurial Schools family. And you're going to hear from 2 of those schools in a minute, and you'll see how cool it is. So next slide, please. This is just a cool quote. I also won't read it. But essentially, you know, we truly believe in entrepreneurial mindsets and the power that by empowering students with these mindsets, what that can do for them in their future. We have no clue what's going to happen, what jobs are even going to be out there, even in 5 years. So the best thing we can do is prepare kids by arming them with the mindsets that'll serve them no matter what they do, whether they go start a business, whether they go into a company and become an entrepreneur, whether they have a social cause that they're supporting and are a social entrepreneur. Those mindsets are still going to be extremely beneficial and life skills. Next slide. So I had the pleasure of introducing 2, well, there's more than 2 because we have some awesome students on here too, but I'm going to introduce right now Dr. Amanda Jones, and the rest of your title, Dr. Jones, is not on I can't see it, but you have a very long, awesome title. She's the coordinator of professional learning, special projects, and innovation. And I think it just says Mobile County Schools, right? And so she's going to tell you about what she did in her amazing school in the last several years. And then Sarah Trent will be up after that.
Thank you. Thank you for having me today. I'm honored to be here to represent Mobile County Public School System. Mobile County Public Schools is in Mobile, Alabama. We're the largest school system in Alabama, serving over 55,000 students. And our entrepreneurial journey began, as far as my involvement in it, at Mary B. Austin Elementary, which is one of our K-5 schools. And I was formerly the principal at Mary B. Austin, and I've just recently transitioned into a district position. And so if you go to the next slide, I want to share a little bit about how our journey began at Mary B. Austin and give a little information to those of you who are out there who are thinking, how can we begin this in our elementary school, middle school, high school? And so at Mary B. Austin, really the first thing I can say is to be aware of people, of your connections. At Austin, we had several things that were already in place, and it was really a parent of ours who is an entrepreneur who introduced me to EntreEd. The forum was in Mobile a few years ago, and that parent explained to me that he noticed a lot of the things that we were doing at Austin really were supporting entrepreneurial skills. And so that's how I got connected with the organization and how that process began so that Austin could become one of America's entrepreneurial schools. But first of all, several years ago, we got started at Austin on learning about 21st century skills. This is a free product from the NEA website, Preparing 21st Century Students. And it walks you through the 4 C's, 21st century learning skills, the communication, collaboration, creativity, and critical thinking. So we started that process so that we could really begin shifting a mindset with our teachers and recognizing that the need for students to own their learning, a need for the teacher to become more of the facilitator of learning, and the students to really own and begin using those critical thinking skills. And so that's one way. Also, our school is really involved with project-based learning. This is a resource from BIE.org. They actually just changed their website to PBL Works. I don't work for any of these companies. I'm just sharing things that were beneficial in our journey. So because we used project-based learning, we were already beginning to integrate in our standards, content area standards, and making those connections. Also, we began designing quarterly themes, and so having those themes made it something that was connected school-wide. So we also had an emerging technologies and communication lab. So students were using 3D printers, 3D designing and printing. We had students learning how to use different communication equipment and digital equipment. And so that was another way that these were things that we already had in place. And so when the idea of entrepreneurship was brought to my attention, I began to realize how we could just seamlessly begin to integrate entrepreneurship. So I pitched that idea to the teachers, and they decided that we would integrate entrepreneurial skills into our 3rd quarter project-based learning units. And so that was every student, kindergarten through 5th grade, would have an opportunity to experience some type of entrepreneurial learning. You can go to the next slide, please. So this, again, is just kind of the big picture of how we put everything together. And again, it centers around those 4 C's. They're often called 21st century learning skills, but giving the students the opportunity to communicate, to collaborate, and to think innovatively and critically. Next slide. And so when our teachers took this on, you know, I have to give all the kudos to them. They really just designed great projects through their third quarter PBL. And, you know, this is third quarter, and so I'm proud to say that Mary B. Austin is continuing this journey under their new leadership with Miss Melissa Wiggum. And just on Friday of last week, our kindergarten students at Mary B. Austin did a Baking a Difference bake sale, where they sold baked goods so that they could raise money for a shelter here in Mobile. And so just to give a few examples, our second graders typically do a fairy tale, folktale, or fable market day, where they have been reading different fairy tales, folktales, and fables, and they design and create some type of business related to one of those stories. Our fifth grade actually takes 2 quarters. They take their entire second semester to design an eco-friendly business solution, and that falls in line with what they're learning about in science. And so in May, they'll be doing a Shark Tank style competition where they're pitching their environmentally friendly business solution. And we also have electives at Austin, and that was another way that we could tie in entrepreneurship. There's a Kidpreneurs elective for K2 and for 3-5. And by electives, that means that once a week on Friday of each week, there's a designated amount of time where students can go to their student choice club or elective. And so Kidpreneurs was one of those clubs. Next slide. So I just joined the district office in January, and so I have only been here for a short period of time, but we are continuing this journey now through the entire Mobile County public school system. And if you can go to the next slide. I want to mention another school here in our system, Denton Magnet School of Technology. Miss Baker is a graphic design teacher at that school, and they have a website up and running already where they are designing products and for sale. Right now they have some great Mardi Gras products ready, which is something. Mobile is actually where Mardi Gras began. It wasn't New Orleans. So there's just a little tidbit of information there. So that's one way that being in this position, I'm now able to really branch out and see what we already have going, and really beginning this by spreading the word. So I'm trying to make these connections. Again, making connections are so important. As you begin to get to know others, then you can really grow this entrepreneurial spirit by making connections with others. So I'm working to partner and hope to go out this week and see some of the work that they're doing again at Denton. Also in Mobile County, we have signature academies at each of our high schools, and we actually have an Academy of Entrepreneurship in one of our high schools already established. And so again, just working to see how we can continue to get the word out about entrepreneurship. I was really excited to see that, you know, STEM is definitely something that has caught national attention, and I am excited to see that entrepreneurship is being listed within the STEM manual now, and just being on the forefront of helping other schools and other areas and other districts to learn more about how we can continue to share entrepreneurial skills and the importance of implementing that. And so that's just a little bit about our journey in Mobile County Public School System. And thank you again for having me.
So I think now we're going to introduce Sarah Trent. She is the library media specialist from Jackson Independent in Breathitt County, Kentucky. So Sarah, can you hear us okay?
I can.
Okay, perfect.
All right. 2 years ago, we were approached by Melanie Denham, and she was like, we would like to get you all involved, and we have this conference we want you to go to, because prior to that, we didn't have an entrepreneurship program at Jackson Independent. We went to this meeting, Miss Howard and myself, Tori Howard and myself, it ignited a flame in us to get our schools involved in entrepreneurship. So this is our entrepreneurship at Jackson Independent, and it all started 2 years ago because of Melanie inviting us to this conference, and it's been wonderful ever since. I wanted to let you know a little bit about our journey. I glanced at our district. You kind of talked to her, and she was one of the biggest districts in her state. We're one of the smallest. We have preschool through 12th grade all housed in the same school, same building. We have a total enrollment, P through 12, of 340 kids. Average class size is around 26 students per class. Next slide, please. Our entrepreneurship plan, our school began an entrepreneurship education program, like I mentioned before, after attending the EntreEd forum. This program consisted of completing an entrepreneurship project with our high school students, 2 of my wonderful girls here that you'll get to meet here in just a second, and holding an entrepreneurship fair and providing entrepreneurship lessons in every class in our school. While the program had support from administrators, of course, we had 0 funds for that, so we was very creative, and I think you'll be excited to see what we could do with that. Next slide, please. We started a fair, as one of the pictures here. Funds are tight, but as a great entrepreneurship education, it's still possible, and that's our motto when I've talked to other teachers in other schools. You got to maximize your existing resources, and our biggest resource, they're our kids. If you give them an idea, let them run with it. I mean, they will amaze you. The kids at my school amaze me, as long as with these ladies right here, the different programs that they've come up with. When I gave them an idea, it's not work on, they went with it. So that's the greatest thing about entrepreneurship. Next slide, please. We became an entrepreneurship school. We were actually the first in the 5 surrounding states. When we came back, and I want to mention this, when I came back to my teachers and I was like, hey, you need to buy in on this. This is awesome. My teachers were actually scared at first. Like, what? I don't think I can fit that in. I don't know what that is. My job, and Miss Howard, Tori Howard's job, was we went to them and said, you're already doing this in your classroom. You know, you're doing it. We just had to bring out these lessons and say, this is what entrepreneurship is. And so we were blessed that we have K-12 and all in one building, and we could get a buy-in from every teacher. We had to go in it first. We had to explain to them, these are the lessons, and they got it, and they ran with it. So when we also have great support at our school, so here's our banners. You can see we were the first in 5 states. We're very proud of that. Next slide, please. We started a little fair. Last year was, it started out small, but the kids ran with it. I think we had 10 to 15 different products. This year we're doing it again this week. You'll see a video here in just a few minutes. They developed a service or a product, created an advertisement, storefront display for their product. Mock sales were held. Students were engaged in lessons as they felt ownership to learn how to best sell their products and services. And here's a video of, this is one of their pitches that they had to do this year, and I'll explain a little bit after the video.
Sorry, I think I had to unmute. My apologies.
Imagine that you were late for school and you had to skip breakfast. Your belly was rumbling like thunder and you felt like you were starving.
You sat down at your desk and your belly continued to rumble. Then suddenly you had an idea.
You remembered that you had a secret weapon inside your backpack. It was your sneaky snacks. Our team has created a product called Sneaky Snacks to help you sneak and eat candy or other foods in class unnoticed. Our business will help kids because sometimes kids don't have time to eat breakfast in the morning, but with these items, they will.
We have made 2 products. One of them is our main product, Sneaky Snacks, and our other is our gift boxes.
Both of which only needed supplies such as candy, containers, yarn, decorative paper, ribbon, and pencils. Not only that, but both of them were very cheap to make. Sneaky Snacks and Sneaky Snack gift boxes only cost $4 whole. If you would like to purchase this item, please find our shop after 1:30.
Sneaky Snacks are $5 and gift boxes are $5.50, and additional pieces of candy are 10 cents.
It's an amazing deal with amazing products. We hope you consider buying our products. Thank you. Any questions?
Okay, and I want to, before we go into the digital memory books, that is one of their pitches. And the reason it had Trent Mart on the top, because we have a lot of students that money may be an issue or building these products, we have what I call, very creative name, Trent Mart. So they give me a list of items and I set up in the library and I have cards, prices on them. So we do provide the supplies that they need. They have to write proposals and do a pitch, and Shark Tank will give them so much money according to their pitch, how well they do, and they can go to the store and buy their items in Trent Mart. So we want to make it available that all students have an equal playing field on building their product. So they shop, they learn to write checks, they have to do a budget, they build their product, and there is ways that they can get additional funds, but it's been very rewarding. On Thursday, they will set up their storefronts, and all the kids in the school will get to go and buy their products. Last year, we did a trial run. This year, they're actually getting to make money off their products, so we're expanding every year with this. So we're really excited about that. The kids are excited, and like I said, we let them run with it, and they've amazed us. Now, this is Haley Mullins, and this is Hallie Turner, and their project last year started with digital memory books, and I'm going to let them tell a little bit about it, and we'll go from there. Go ahead, girls.
So the digital memory books is a $25 purchase of a 2-disc set. Parents can pre-order these, and throughout the year, our STEAM students, which are featured in the middle school of our school, they follow every class around, and they just get a personalized copy of what they do throughout the school year. Parents tend to miss the things that their child is involved in throughout the school year, so we figured that since we're going into a digital age, a personalized yearbook for certain classes would be the best option for parents to buy, rather than a overpriced yearbook that will just be shoved into a closet.
And we were on the yearbook staff. We are this year too, but we realized that children really aren't in their yearbooks much, where it's preschool through 12th grade. So you're maybe in there once or twice, just like your regular yearbook picture, and just one of you Spirit Week or something. And that really doesn't give kids much confidence that they're actually part of a school, and this gives them individualized proof that they are part of something, and that's a really good thing for us.
All right, next slide.
We competed at the Morehead State University regional competition, and we won 2nd place out of 6 different competitors, so that was awesome.
Well, 6 different schools, which some of them had 2 to 3 different pitches.
Yeah.
So it was in our region. I was very impressed with these girls. Next.
So last year we only sold to kindergarten class because since we are a K through 12 school, we figured that starting small would be our best option. This year we were selling to K through 5. Last year we did make $850 off of our project, and this year our estimated sales were higher than the $2,700. They're actually $3,400.
With pre-sales.
Yeah. So the STEM students were the ones are our workforce. This is their technology part. They make our product and get a grade for it. So that's how we keep our business rolling.
And it helps that I'm the STEM teacher. So, all right, next slide. Is there any questions? We'll answer them later. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. That was a wonderful presentation. We're excited to be joining everyone today. EntreEd is a wonderful partner of ours on a number of different levels. The team that kind of surrounds this is really looking at the continuum of K to 18, as we call it. So I want to just begin some very brief remarks by sharing with you a little bit about NACCE. So if you would go to the next slide, please. Okay, well, that's me. And before you go on to the next one, one of the things that we have a lot to be proud about is we have a new book that we've been working on for the last 2 years that is actually going to be available right beyond National Entrepreneurship Week in February. So some of the thought leadership shared by Joe Cap that kicked us off and some of the best practices that are employed by Amber and Toy and Jean and the teachers on the call are infused within this book. It's a great textbook for graduate students, but it's a great practical guide for anyone who wants to become entrepreneurial. So I would encourage you to follow me on Twitter if you can. There's my handle, Rebecca Corbin 7. I love seeing what the kids are doing. One of the big projects we have at NACCE is our Verizon Innovative Learning Project, where we are serving 1,500 girls across the country, and we're set to expand that tremendously. So just real quickly, I wanted to just share with you, if you go to the next slide, a little bit about NACCE. It sets it up for my next 2 speakers. So you can see in just a moment, I'm going to send you a graphical slide, but let's show a quick video right now. Amber, if you just unmute yourself and show that video, you'll get a chance to see how we all work together.
Entrepreneurship is the future of jobs because 65% of jobs don't even exist yet for the students that are in schools today. So they have to create their own future because technology changes constantly.
We hope to create more opportunities for kids to become entrepreneurs and to help our rural communities become more entrepreneurial, creating a healthier financial picture for our rural communities.
And taking small steps, it might be setting up a lemonade stand, it might be engaging in some kind of community project, but it's very empowering. It teaches children that they have that opportunity to change the world for the better, and I think that message resonates with them.
In 2016, NACCE joined EntreEd in a project funded by the Appalachian Regional Commission through a power grant. The project joins together 8 community colleges with school districts in their community to promote entrepreneurship in the K-12 environment. The idea was to encourage teachers and students to think and act in an entrepreneurial way. To date, this work has impacted over 45,000 students.
EntreEd is a grant that threads together 8 community colleges in coal-affected communities from Hocking College in Ohio all the way down to Southeastern Community College in Kentucky and a number of the Kentucky colleges, including some colleges in West Virginia and Virginia as well. We estimate that over 45,000 students' lives have been impacted and have had the opportunity to be exposed through entrepreneurship. And I think one of the biggest challenges in rural communities and in Appalachia oftentimes is the lack of exposure to opportunities and awareness of entrepreneurship as a potential career pathway.
EntreEd gives schools resources and helps them focus on entrepreneurship. Schools in Appalachia that commit to entrepreneurship from K to 12 get an official designation. Local community colleges are a direct way to connect EntreEd with K-12 schools, reaching over 40,000 students.
When the school is able to bring entrepreneurial programming to every kid in the building, they get this big banner along with the press and the support. We support them all throughout the year.
Southeast Kentucky Community and Technical College is currently working with 20 school districts and received the 2018 Outstanding Community College Partnership Award for their work.
It's a great recruiting tool, actually, and it allows us to work with the guidance counselors, the principals, some of the business teachers at the schools. Kindergarten especially, you wouldn't think that recruiting would start that young, but it really does. It sets a mindset, that, hey, I've been to that college before, or I know who they are.
Another participating EntreEd community college is Hocking College in Eastern Ohio in the Appalachian foothills.
Working with NACCE and EntreEd has opened doors for Hocking College and allowed us to expand our community partnerships. Growing up in Appalachia and understanding the Appalachian culture and heritage, we are a resilient people. And part of that resilience is knowing how to pull yourself up by your bootstraps. And that really is at the heart of what it means to be an entrepreneur. And so we are telling this story and teaching kids because it's important for us to show them that if they want to start their own business, they can do it.
The ultimate goal is that we build these mindsets in young people so that they're able to go out and tackle whatever comes at them. Our success metric is not every kid's going to start their own business. Our success metric is, do they have these mindsets to survive whatever's coming at them? We have no clue what the working world is going to look like. And so the only way we can prepare kids for something we can't even visualize is to give them those mindsets that empower them no matter what they do.
Okay, thank you, Amber. So moving along to our next slide, you can see the graphical image on the left really is, I think, what comprises what we all would consider to be the soft skills, those critical thinking skills that we spoke about earlier on in the webinar. So NACCE as a nonprofit really has that mission of joining together 300 plus community colleges around the country with 2,000 professionals serving over 3 million students. So the work that we've spoken about today really has impacted over 45,000 students. And what we're looking to do is expand this in the future. So what I'm going to share with you in a moment is really the two principal focus points of NACCE. Number one are those who lead, which will be the two speakers that you'll hear from shortly. One is a community college president, and one is a leader of a very robust entrepreneurship program in Kansas City. So when you think about why entrepreneurship exists, why NACCE exists, we really focus on the why, on partnership within the ecosystem, on the experience, and two, on the gig economy. So I want to take a moment as we go to the next slide to just hit on a couple of points. We are big believers in entrepreneurship for everyone. The wonderful thing about entrepreneurship is it's really in the doing that it makes a profound change. So what we try to do is really support emerging teaching practices and leaders. And as you look at this slide, I like this because a lot of the professional development that we do with faculty and presidents, believe it or not, works very well with middle schoolers. I often tease some of our presidents that the middle schoolers pick it up quicker, probably because they're at that age where they can just embrace some of these things. But when you look at a concept that organizational psychologists would look at as sort of a power issue, if you look at that green in the center, children, a lot of disadvantaged groups, under-resourced people are sort of in that green area where they don't have a lot of power. And I mean power in the sense of really having agency and having control over your destiny. And what we try to do is really use entrepreneurship to expand the power base that people have to self-actualize and to make a difference in their lives. So one of the things, if you look into this a little bit more, you'll see that if you're in one of these disadvantaged groups, you can use entrepreneurship really to expand the impact that you make in your life. So going to my next slide, I want to do a really quick activity with everybody on the phone, if you would indulge me a bit, because this is how we learn. I want you to take your finger and I want you to, on your forehead, make a capital E. Okay, so just do that on your forehead. So everybody do that. Okay. All right, so everyone's done. Now I want you to think about that E. Did you have the E outward facing as if it were facing out to the world, or did you have it inward facing as if it were affecting you? it's an interesting thing to think about, because on entrepreneurship, and as we're thinking about how we relate to the world, it's really about mindset, which is what all of these speakers spoke about, but it's really also about that way to really engage where you're taking advantage of opportunity. So I am going to, I want to make sure that my speakers each have 6 or 7 minutes. So I'm going to leave you with a couple of practical tips. One of the things that you can really do today through entrepreneurship to expand your range is to do a couple of things. Many women and middle school girls that we deal with and others sometimes have difficulty advocating for themselves. I will, disclose that this is often an issue for me, but if you can really put yourself in the mindset to advocate for others, they often call this the mama bear or papa bear effect, you can really be transformative, because really we all have that obligation to move the dial forward for our communities and for children and for everyone. The other thing is really the power of asking advice. We bring entrepreneurs into the life of the college and communities. We want to know what they learn, and what happens is amazing. A lot of times they will share resources. They actually become involved in our work. The other thing is really an opportunity to display your expertise. This is what NACCE does. We are rolling out a badging program for global entrepreneurship this year. We're also re-granting about $2 million to colleges and others who want to be involved with communities of practice. So without further ado, I will ask Amber to take us to the next slide, and we will begin with our first of 2 speakers. So Dr. Hooks, would you take it away, please, and share with us what's going on in your community?
Hello, and well, thank you. I'm going to start out talking about ice, because here in Kansas City, that's what we're skating on. For anybody who hasn't been to Kansas, they say if you don't like the weather here, stay 5 minutes and it'll change. But anyhow, if you could go on to the next slide. And please feel free to just play the video as I continue to talk, because I want to get through these as quickly as I can. What we're doing at Kansas City, Kansas Community College is, when we talk about an ecosystem, it's just like the video. It's taking a lot of separate parts and trying to make it into a whole. And that's what we call the Entrepreneurial Innovation Center. So years ago, NACCE had embraced the Kansas City, Kansas Community College and reached out and challenged the college to see what it could do in this area in leadership, or taking a leadership role in entrepreneurialism in the community. And so I really do thank EntreEd, and I thank NACCE and all of the work that you all are doing globally, because I think oftentimes you all are probably just so busy digging in, making an impact, that sometimes maybe you don't realize the impact that you really are making on an individual basis, even in communities like ours. So I do want to say thank you. So next slide, please. So one of the things, and moving quickly here, and go ahead and yes. So I want to give the why. Why do we want to focus on leadership and community development? And we had to ask ourselves this question too, because when I was brought on to start this, I had asked, why is it? So our mission was to organically grow the entrepreneurial ecosystem. So the first question that a lot of people have in a community, and when we're looking at Entrepreneurship Week, people are thinking, how do we start? Where do we start? This thing is huge. I don't know where to begin. So the why is, we look at and we focus on all of these other programs, and we try to take templates and make it work in our area. And I am so glad that the young lady was speaking about how diverse entrepreneurialism is. And so one of the things that community colleges have that are unique is the majority of our graduates remain in our community. So as a leader, what entrepreneurialism is for us in the community is we have a huge impact on community development, which leads to a result in our economic development. So next, you can click again, please. So we have to take a look at the gems that we have in our own area, and the gems are the uniqueness that our members and our students have to offer, our unique expression of that greatness, and the unique motivation that we bring. And that's what the entrepreneurial mindset is. When we see entrepreneurs, they have a way of capturing what that uniqueness is, so we're not necessarily trying to duplicate. And that's how, when she was expressing, even with a low budget, we're still able to be creative and identify things in ways. And that's how we're able to do it. If we're going to take a leadership role in our community, we have to first identify what are those unique gems that are in our own area that we can drive and take that role. Next slide, please. So as we're going through this whole process, then we have to see what others can't. And I remember growing up, my father would often get called into projects. And let me tell you something unique about my father. He would be getting called in these projects by architects and engineers. And my father's almost 90. So you have to imagine back then they didn't have all these fancy CAD programs. So he would get called in and he would be able to look at a building before it was totally formed and say and predict where challenges would occur in setting together piping systems and electricity and all of this kind of thing. And he would be used as a consultant. Well, something key about that is my father only has a 6th grade education. And so he had the ability to see. And when we're talking about an entrepreneurial mindset, that's something that we're able to help foster and teach in our community and in our students and help push when we're talking about taking this leadership role, because that whole entrepreneurial mindset is the ability to be able to take chaos and be able to move it and create a culture out of it. You see, what entrepreneurs are able to take what a C is a significant emotional event. So entrepreneurs have almost this oxymoronic way of seeing life. You see, entrepreneurs like to run into failure because we recognize that you only learn from failure. You don't learn from success. You know, if you hit success, you really don't know exactly which trigger got me there. But in failure, you know exactly what it is, what not to do. And so entrepreneurs are not afraid of failure. So we embrace it. Matter of fact, there's a phrase that says fail fast and fail cheap. And so when you have a C and you're teaching students, even at an early age and through community colleges and then taking that leadership role in the community, that it's okay to try things and it's okay to fail because those significant emotional events allow you a type of vision to see things that others don't see, and then you can create things that didn't even exist before from materials that do exist. Next slide, please. So lastly, to touch on what we talked about, ICE, and you can just, yes, thank you, click right on through. There's a difference between a corporate mindset and an entrepreneurial mindset. And as you go through some of these and asking some questions to where you can get a little bit more explanation, but you'll find that the corporate mindset tends to be just a little bit more competitive, where the entrepreneurial mindset tends to be a little bit more embracing. So the ICE stands for inclusion, it stands for collaborative, it stands for embracing, which you won't find so much in the corporate mindset. This is why a lot of community colleges are helping to foster in communities maker spaces and incubators and entrepreneurs and residents, because in that ecosystem, you can grow things much like in a rainforest to where that organic growth begins to happen. And this is why we must take a leadership role to cause this organic growth to begin to happen, because that collaborative mindset instilled even as young as kindergartners, which I'm so glad for this work that's being done, even in kindergartners. When that mindset is instilled, then that growth can occur all the way up into adults and can create and lead to ongoing change all the way through economic development and extreme business growth. Next slide, please. I'm not going to go through the precepts or the principles. There's 5 basic principles in the principles of effectuation of the entrepreneurial mindset, but for the sake of time, I'm just going to kind of keep going. So I wanted to give an example. So for people who are listening on this call and saying, okay, just give me some simple steps of some things that I can do this week for eShip Week so that my office or my community or my neighborhood group or my community college or my department can participate in some things. So just thought I would give you a slice of what we're doing here in our department, the Entrepreneurship, Workforce, and Career Center. What we're doing this week, just some sample items, and it may kind of generate some thought of some things that you can do. So today, this afternoon, matter of fact, we're working with the state, some entrepreneurs, and some community groups to find out how we can leverage some additional funds that are not in competition with businesses, that money can be given to some entrepreneurs to help take their business to the next level. So can you get involved with a focus group to see how you can help an entrepreneur? Yeah, doesn't cost a dime. Be a part of a mind group. Tomorrow, we're meeting with some groups that are dealing with returning citizens, or some people call them ex-offenders, on how else can we help them in the trades to help them start their own business to get additional streams of income that also comply with what probation and parole officers will say as proof of income. How can we raise that to the next level? Again, it's just a question, solving a problem, thinking outside the box. What you'll find is most of these these conversations are driven from the concept of inviting people in to think out. I'll say that again, inviting people in to think out. Invite people around you to think outside the box. People need permission oftentimes to think outside the box. Get some people together to do that. Tomorrow night we have a group in our area called the Inventor Center. And it's a bunch of people who invent. They make things, and they don't mind getting around other people and sharing that information on, well, how did I trademark, and how did I copyright it? How did I shortcut that electrical problem that I had, and it seems like you've got that same problem. And it's kind of a think tank. Wednesday, we have a local technology entrepreneur that wants to come and talk to different departments at the college on how he can use his AI when we don't have the number of staff that we use cross campus. I know no other school in the nation would like to hire extra staff. I know everybody has all the staff that they need. But anyway, here in Kansas, he wants to talk to the college departments and has some ideas on how technology can help augment the staff, and he's just presenting some ideas. That's something that we can do for Entrepreneurship Week. Thursday, we're inviting in some veterans group. I know just about every state has the Vets and Biz ideas, and we're wanting to see how can we put that on steroids now. Tomorrow, we're inviting in a local entrepreneur who cooks. That's something everybody can do. Everybody eats. Talk to some of your local providers, bring them in, and pay for a meal for your staff. You can go on to the next slide. So for this slide just shows some of the things that our department directly does as the Entrepreneurial Innovation Center that's housed here. I'm not going to go through every single one of these, but each one of these were created out of the precepts of principles of effectuation, or in other words, the entrepreneurial mindset. So we literally just went through that simple 5-step process and created things. For example, the Business and Life Mastery. We're in our 4th year. That came through the fact of we have over 300 clients that we work with in our Entrepreneurial Center, and we do one-on-one counseling. We walk them through the process of revenue generation. We've got over 5 now that we've raised into over $1 million in revenue. In over 12 to 14 months, they've gotten to that level of revenue. And so now we're seeing what else is missing, and what we found is that the majority of them hit a ceiling when their thought patterns get to a certain limit, where their belief systems get. And so we decided to have a conference that didn't just deal with learning about how to grow your business. It's also, how do we take off the limits of your thinking? And so we experimented with a Business and Life Mastery conference workshop 4 years ago. It was half a day, and we had it at a hotel. And people didn't leave. It was going on about midnight that night. And so we thought maybe next year we want to have it all day. Had it all day. At 8 o'clock, we had to boot people, and so on and so forth. It kept getting longer and longer. So this year, for the first time, we're putting on a 3-day conference, and that is the topic. It's not just how to do the paperwork of the business, but it's how do you keep from sabotaging your own self when you're scared of the revenues that you really can accomplish and achieve. That's in August. So Business and Industry Co-op program. That was thought out of businesses saying, how do we expand, and how do we also get practical application in the classroom of contracting as a unit and giving experiential and how do we put all this together with business and industry. Like I said, I don't want to take too much time, but there's a number of things that you can do. So what's some next steps? Give us a call. We can brainstorm with you. Ask us questions. We can come train your staff. We can work with you on negotiating contracts through this whole process. Just reach out. And thank you so much for taking the time, and happy eShip Week.
Great. Thank you so much for that presentation. I really appreciate it and very, very insightful. I know that we are limited for time, but we want to make sure that Dr. Ionia has time to go ahead and speak. So with that, take it away. Take it away.
Great. Thank you, Joe. Just want to make sure everyone can hear me. You can go on to the next slide, Amber. So our approach, I'm president of Dabney Lancaster Community College. We're the second smallest community college in Virginia. We have about 1,500 students annually, and we are in Appalachia, and we are looking for, you know, my approach to entrepreneurship has really always been in any realm, especially today, to try to respond to enrollment pressures and financial challenges, is that we are, you know, my description is always that the community college, the word community is our middle name. So we really have to look outward. So my philosophy in leadership is that any approach to entrepreneurship has to start with the community college president. It has to start at the top, and from the great stories, hearing it from K through 12, it certainly starts with the principals, the superintendents, and even the teachers. My approach has always been that colleges need to see themselves as a community partner. We need to look outward. We have to be outward facing. I think Dr. Hooks, you know, alluded to that a little bit in the previous spot. We also, I know, unlike other states, Virginia does not have all the resources. So we are always trying to find and leverage resources by finding new partners and donors. I think my approach really comes from my years of experience in fundraising. I came from the fundraising ranks and always had an approach of it's not now, it's never no, it's not now. So we can really look toward how can we actually leverage some resources, both community, private dollars, et cetera. And, you know, colleges, as well as any organization, needs to continue to embrace change. If we are standing still, we're moving backwards. And that has really been the approach that I have tried to take in my almost 6 years here. Next slide. So my last position, I've had the fortune of actually helping build a brand new community college. And I was there for 18 years. And this was basically our mantra, was find a way or make one. So I actually really worked for I've actually worked for a college that took an entrepreneurial approach. We have to be creative and innovative ways to approaching a challenge. And I always think back to this quote continuously. And what I have tried to instill in my time here is to really find creative opportunities to really move forward with very limited resources, very limited staff, like a number of organizations. And I think that the ones that are successful actually find ways to provide services, provide programs for our students. And the ones that are not successful really die. So next slide, please. I'll just show you our approach from the college has not been as comprehensive as Dr. Hooks at her college because of our size primarily, but I've always looked for partnerships. Partnerships even as simple as, for example, when I arrived and we did not have cafeteria services. We had 10.5 years and our cafeteria had been closed. The philosophy of my predecessor, and he did a lot of great things, was as soon as someone retired, that was a budget, that was a way to balance the budget so they didn't replace the position. And even though it was an essential position, so my approach has been, we need to provide cafeteria, bookstore, housekeeping services. These have all been approached in very different ways. Matter of fact, our cafeteria was started by somebody who we partner with, and I'll get into in a second, into an entrepreneurial program, and he wanted to start a restaurant. And he's also a graduate of our culinary program. So he is actually beginning last September, he is running our cafeteria and open 5 days a week, providing breakfast and lunch. And he has actually been very successful because he was willing and we were willing to work with him. I've also found ways to actually fund special projects or studies, and things like workforce studies and new program studies, etc. So those have all been really private funding. There has not been any budget allowances for us. We are about as close to the margin as you possibly can for budgets. Another important thing is working with our regional and local economic development offices. We actually have one of our economic development offices on our campus, and I am in there 2 or 3 times a week. And what has come out of that is our entree into a partnership for an incubator, but it is very specialized around unmanned systems or drones. So we actually partner, it's not on our campus, but it's in our community around an unmanned systems, what we call the drone zone. And it is a partnership with the county, the city, our economic development organization, the college, and others, where we will actually that these employers are going to end up hiring. Our entrepreneurship activity is very specific. Again, with limited resources, the partnership with an organization called the Advancement Foundation, and they partner with our Economic Development Corporation. They actually had already developed an entrepreneurship program that leads to a pitch competition. Our faculty have been presenters. Matter of fact, tomorrow night, it's every Tuesday night. Tomorrow night, our marketing faculty will be presenting a topic on marketing your small business. I've also served as a mentor in some cases around nonprofits, and it's really been a great activity. And our next exploration is something called the Innovation Hub, which if we had more time, I could try to explain it. But it really sort of takes what we're doing possibly to the next step. So these are low cost, high impact activities because that's basically how we live day to day. And we really need to, if it wasn't for these partners, we would not be as involved with entrepreneurial activities as we potentially are. Last slide. So my last slide is just really around the final thoughts and approach. It really is, bottom line is with vision. The vision of all of this is for student success. We've had students involved in the Gauntlet project. We have done actual presentations to students as well as faculty, but it really has to set the vision that you are going to get involved. This community has actually struggled around entrepreneurship because some people, old school, feel like they're not real jobs unless it's manufacturing. Okay, so we have a couple of us that constantly wave the flag on promoting entrepreneurship. The next thing is around challenge the process. You know, the top, we really have to instill entrepreneurial spirit. My first year here, I never heard that word on campus. And I've started to even talk about it in my presentations to faculty and staff. Again, never know, it's not now. That's been really the approach. Strategic alliances, I talked about partnerships, and all of that really, in my mind, leads to resources that many of us don't have. And again, if it wasn't for partnerships locally, nationally, with NACCE, for example, EntreEd, and so forth, we would not be able to at least be, we have a long way to go. We are far from any, you know, from completion, or even a point where I would even think we're halfway there, wherever that is. But we would not have been able to accomplish what we did in the short period of time if it wasn't for our alliances and the resources that we have. I think that's it. Thank you.
Great, thank you so much. We appreciate that, those insightful presentations. And we apologize again to everybody for running over a little bit, but we appreciate the bulk of the folks standing here. For more information about the programs and their phenomenal programs, I feel fortunate to have had the ability to be able to work with a number of colleges and programs and jointly with NACCE and EntreEd. Go ahead and tweet at them, reach out to them. Their resources and the reach are vast and various, and certainly the drive to go ahead and bring entrepreneurship education to communities across the United States to help create America's next entrepreneurs. The commitment for the teams are just incredible. So again, thank you so much for those presentations today. There's a couple of other final slides just as a reminder. Follow us again on Twitter, National Entrepreneurship Week, and keep abreast of all of the things and the activities that are going on. On Wednesday, we are going to go ahead and have a Twitter storm from 3 o'clock to 3:30 p.m. To really raise the profile. So add to your calendars and just come and join us about tweeting about entrepreneurship and startup activities. Next slide. And then tomorrow we have the libraries and incubators. It should be a phenomenal presentation. In addition to our community colleges and our K through 12 and our higher education, we have a host of libraries and incubators and accelerators with every library and NBIA presenting to us tomorrow from 2 o'clock to 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. One final piece is that we'd like to go ahead and just invite everybody for planning for 2020. We're putting together an advisory board and a state ambassador program. The goal here is to go ahead and have organizations really weigh in on a variety of different activities and broaden the scope of the partnerships and the organizations that come to the table. And in addition, we're looking at the possibility of establishing a state ambassador who would work really from the state's perspective to help coalesce and bring together the array of people, activities, organizations that are taking place in the state. So if that's something that you're interested in, please go ahead and sign up for that on the website.
Okay, and with that, I think that's all we have. So thank you all very much, and we appreciate you staying on and going over a little bit with us. We hope you found this rewarding. As I mentioned, this will be live in about a week maximum. So we'll send out a message to everyone who registered as well.
Great. Thank you, Amber, and thank you, everybody, for their participation. Happy National Entrepreneurship Week.
Thank you.